Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're plunging into a topic that's fundamentally reshaping how we get our news, how we process information, and really how our society functions. We're talking about the profound impact of artificial intelligence on the information economy. We've brought together, well, an incredible stack of sources for you, insightful articles, cutting-edge research, to really unpack this complex landscape.
It's a truly pivotal moment, yeah. AI isn't just a tool journalists use behind the scenes anymore. It's rapidly becoming the primary interface, the main way many of us consume information.
Right.
Our mission today is to explore how this transition is fundamentally changing everything. We're talking the economics of journalism, the very integrity of knowledge itself, and crucially, what we can actually do about it.
Yeah.
Think of this as your essential guide, sort of, to navigating the future of news in this AI-dominated world.
So let's pull back the curtain on this transformation. We'll start by looking at how AI is becoming the new gateway to information. Then we'll tackle the economic seismic shifts hitting traditional news. Then dive into the potential for information to actually degrade over time, which is kind of scary.
Yes.
And finally, consider the significant sociopolitical stakes involved. It's truly remarkable how quickly these changes are unfolding and how deeply they're already affecting our daily lives.
Absolutely. And when we talk about AI's role in news, it's critical to understand it's moved far beyond simply, helping journalists with tasks like data analysis or transcription.
Exactly. AI is now taking a front row seat. Instead of you going directly to a publisher's website, maybe, you get automated summaries, conversational AI assistants intercepting you, delivering news directly.
Right. And that shift, well, it fundamentally severs the direct relationship between publishers and their audience. It accelerates the commodification of news, makes it feel like just another product, and it dilutes the unique value of those journalistic brands.
And this leads to what some sources are calling the convenience trust paradox, which is interesting.
It really is. On one hand, people are absolutely drawn to the speed and personalization AI offers. They often expect news to be cheaper, more up to date.
It's undeniable. Surveys show there's this net positive expectation, right, for AI to deliver news that's quicker and more current. I mean, who doesn't want that immediate personalized convenience?
Exactly. But almost simultaneously, there's this deep undercurrent of skepticism. Most people express real concern that AI will make news less transparent, maybe less accurate, and ultimately just less trustworthy.
Yeah, human-written news is still seen as more credible.
Definitely. And the tricky part is how platforms exploit this. They grab your attention, the user, through sheer convenience. They benefit from your engagement. While the economic damage, the reputational damage from this growing distrust, it largely falls squarely on the news publishers.
So how does this actually work under the hood? You mentioned the tech. The core of many of these AI news interfaces is something called Retrieval-Augmented Generation, or RAG.
Right, job.
It's often presented as the solution to those infamous AI hallucinations we hear about.
That's the idea. RAG essentially has two main parts. There's a retriever that searches external knowledge sources like news articles, and then there's a generator that uses that retrieved information to synthesize a response, to write the answer. The promise is that RAG can cite its sources. It lets you trace information back to its origin, which theoretically enhances credibility.
Right, you can see where it came from.
Some news organizations are even using it to pull information only from their own source articles, trying to keep it contained.
That sounds like a solid step towards trust and transparency. But, okay, if it's designed to be so good, where do the real challenges come in? Or even the dangers? What are some of those, unexpected failure points of R?
Well, there are several, and they're quite significant. First, there's bias amplification. If the data the retriever uses, or maybe its underlying algorithms, carry existing biases, say, from a historically unrepresentative set of training documents.
Which happens.
Absolutely. RAG won't just replicate those biases. It can actually reinforce and amplify them. It can potentially create these closed knowledge silos and end up excluding diverse perspectives.
And I guess it could also become an incredibly efficient misinformation vector, right?
Precisely. If that external knowledge base RAG pulls from contains inaccurate or misleading information, the system will present it authoritatively. So you end up with false claims, beautifully packaged and presented as fact by the AI.
Wow.
Then there's the issue of fundamental opacity. Even with citations, it's incredibly difficult to understand why the model selected certain passages. How did it weigh them? What information did it choose to ignore? This makes true accountability very, very challenging.
A black box, even with links.
To some extent, yes.
Oh.
And finally, as with any system handling vast amounts of data, privacy and security risks are a constant concern. RIG systems might inadvertently expose personally identifiable information, sensitive data from sources, and, malicious actors could even try to manipulate sources to inject harmful content into AI outputs.
Okay, so beyond the technical details, what does all of this mean for us? For the people actually trying to make sense of the world using this stuff, it feels like it's leading to a profound cognitive shift, maybe a behavioral shift too, moving from active critical reading to more passive conversational inquiry.
That's a key point. We're shifting from a pull model, where you actively seek out information, compare sources, to more of a push model, where you just query an AI and passively receive a single synthesized answer.
Right.
And this brings up a critical question the sources grapple with. Does AI-driven collation substitute for critical thought, or does it somehow amplify it?
Hmm.
While some might argue it synthesizes information from more sources than a human realistically could, this convenience, it definitely comes at a cost. It removes the cognitive labor involved in assessing credibility, identifying bias, weighing evidence, really understanding nuance.
Yeah, that effort we used to put in. It's almost like the conversational format of chatbots is framing complex topics as simple questions with singular answers, which really discourages exploring ambiguity or actively seeking out dissenting opinions.
Exactly. This is a fundamental change in how we know things. Some call it an epistemic shift. We're moving away from verification, asking, is this verifiable? Who wrote it? What's the evidence?
Right, the classic journalistic questions.
Towards simply plausibility, asking, does this sound plausible? Does it feel right? AI outputs are optimized for linguistic coherence, for a confident tone, not necessarily factual accuracy.
So the burden of proof shifts to me, to the consumer, to doubt this seemingly authoritative answer.
That's the implication. This outsourcing of critical thought, if it goes unchecked, threatens a gradual erosion of media literacy and, independent critical thinking over time.
Okay, let's shift gears then and talk about the money. Because let's be honest, the news industry was already in crisis long before AI really hit the mainstream. We've seen staggering declines, like did the U.S. lose two-thirds of its newspaper journalist jobs?
Something like that, yeah. And a huge revenue drop, over 50%, even when website traffic sometimes went up. It's paradoxical.
And now generative AI is accelerating what some are calling the zero-click apocalypse. That sounds ominous.
It does, and it is for many publishers. The zero-click apocalypse basically means that when AI summaries and direct answers appear right there in your search results or on platforms, you, the user, often don't need to click through to the original news site anymore.
Right, you get the gist without leaving Google or the chatbot.
Exactly, and this directly cuts off crucial revenue streams. Fewer visits mean fewer ad impressions, and it completely severs that subscription funnel. Publishers can't build relationships easily to convert casual readers into paying subscribers.
And the impact here is incredibly uneven, isn't it? Like big news organizations, maybe they have the resources to negotiate deals or adapt.
They might. They have more leverage. But small, local, and niche publishers, the ones who really rely on search traffic to survive,
Yeah.
they face an existential threat. We're talking about the very real risk of widespread news deserts just growing across communities.
That's deeply concerning. And it's a vicious cycle, too. Publishers adopt AI tools, maybe from the very platforms that are simultaneously eroding their core business.
Further ceding control, yes. It's a difficult position.
So, stepping back, people have hoped for other solutions. What about micropayments? Those small fees per article. That idea keeps popping up.
It does. It has a certain theoretical appeal, especially with modern payment systems making tiny transactions seem more feasible.
Seems logical. Pay for what you read.
But it's proven to be, as one source put it, a structural mirage. Past attempts, like the platform bundle, they didn't really take off. There's just too much decision friction. People resist consciously deciding to pay for every single piece of content.
Yeah, that little moment of, do I really want to pay 25 cents for this? Adds up.
It does, and the economics often don't work out well. Transaction fees can eat up a huge chunk of those tiny payments. Plus, let's face it, we live in a world flooded with free or seemingly free content. Very few users are actually willing to pay for a single article. Some research showed less than 3% paid for one-off news in the past year across dozens of countries.
Wow, that low.
That low. And it also carries the risk of cannibalizing loyal subscribers. Why pay $15 a month if you only read a few articles and could pay per piece?
Right, they might downgrade.
So while concepts like maybe mini payments for a day pass show some limited promise for getting new users in the door, The dream of per-article micropayments as a primary model for news, it just hasn't materialized. It doesn't seem viable.
Okay, so if micropayments aren't the silver bullet, what is looking more promising? This is where it gets genuinely compelling, I think.
Yeah.
Direct content licensing.
Yes, this is a big shift. The core idea here is that high-quality human-generated journalism is an absolutely essential, non-substitutable resource for AI models.
They need it.
They absolutely need it, especially to combat hallucinations and prevent what we'll talk about next, model collapse. Think of news archives, decades of reporting, as incredibly valuable data gold mines for training AI.
Huh. So the value shifts from eyeballs on pages to the raw material itself.
Precisely. And the current widespread practice of just scraping content without permission or compensation, it's widely viewed by publishers as, frankly, wide-scale theft of intellectual property.
Strong words. What about fair use? Don't AI companies claim that?
They do, but those claims are pretty tenuous. We're talking about commercial use, ingesting entire archives, not just snippets. And crucially, AI summaries often act as direct market substitutes for the original articles. That weakens the fair use argument significantly.
But we are seeing a change, a new paradigm emerging.
We are. Major publishers, the Associated Press, Vox, The Atlantic, Axel Springer, others, they're actually signing direct licensing deals with big AI companies like OpenAI.
Okay, so deals are happening. But for this to be truly sustainable and equitable, what needs to be in place?
Well, the sources point to a few key things. We need things like standardized agreements, maybe negotiated collectively by publishers to ensure fair value. We need diverse compensation models, maybe flat fees, maybe value-in-kind partnerships, maybe per-use payments based on how much content is cited.
Like a royalty.
Sort of, yeah. And collective bargaining frameworks similar to the news media bargaining codes we've seen pop up in places like Australia and Canada could empower smaller publishers.
And this creates, what do you call it, a virtuous cycle.
Exactly. When AI developers pay for data, it gives them a strong incentive to actively seek out high-quality, reliable information. Can't train good models on junk? This, in turn, creates real market demand for rigorous fact-checking, in-depth investigative work, diverse perspectives, all the hallmarks of great journalism.
So it could actually reinvest in quality reporting.
That's the hope. So if we summarize the viable models, traditional ads and micropayments look pretty low viability now because of zero-click and friction. Digital subscriptions remain core, but they're challenged. But direct content licensing and maybe some kind of systemic content royalty layer, those emerge as potentially robust, high-viability models that monetize the content itself, independent of traffic clicks.
That truly is a critical shift in thinking.
Yeah.
So let's talk about something that sounds, frankly, almost dystopian, but sources say it's a very real threat, the Ouroboros effect, or model collapse.
Right. Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. It's a powerful analogy. This happens when AI models repeatedly train on their own synthetic outputs or outputs from other AIs, creating this self-referential, endlessly looping system.
It just feeds on itself.
Essentially, yes, it's a kind of degenerative learning process. Each generation of AI trained on previous AI output introduces small errors, approximations, maybe amplifies existing biases. When its synthetic output is then fed back in to train the next generation, these imperfections aren't just replicated, they get amplified. This leads to what researchers call irreversible defects in performance. The model gets worse over time.
And this collapse causes, what, two main forms of decay in the information itself?
Primarily, yes. First, a loss of diversity. Outputs become homogenized, bland, repetitive. They just lose their nuances, their specific details.
Everything sounds the same.
Kind of. And second, perhaps even more concerning, is the loss of tail data. This refers to the rare stuff, the low-frequency information, novel insights, dissenting opinions, outlier events, the things that give human knowledge its richness and depth.
The unusual perspectives, the unexpected findings?
Exactly. Model collapse causes AI models to smooth over this crucial tail data. They essentially discard it as statistical noise until it potentially disappears entirely from the model's knowledge.
Wow. And the insidious part you mentioned is that the models can actually become more confident as they become more wrong. How does that work?
Well, if recycled misinformation or a biased perspective gets reinforced thousands of times in the synthetic training data it's feeding on, the AI will learn to present that information with increasing certainty because it's seen it so often. It creates this feedback loop of confident inaccuracy.
Okay, so how does this Ouroboros effect degrade the common pool of information, our whole news ecosystem?
It connects directly back to the economics we discussed. The pressures on journalism mean less original human reporting is happening. At the same time, AI-generated content is flooding the internet, so you get this perfect storm, shrinking fresh, reality-grounded data,
Good stuff.
combined with an exploding amount of synthetic, potentially degrading data.
That sounds bad. What are the consequences?
They're potentially severe. We're looking at factual decay, where old errors get recycled and maybe cemented as truth in this closed loop. Bias amplification on a massive scale, reinforcing societal biases in the news we see. Erosion of nuance as complex stories get flattened. Minority viewpoints lost because they're tail data. And ultimately, stagnation of insight. The system loses its ability to generate novel connections or frame perspectives because it's just recycling old patterns.
This isn't just a threat to, like, public access to reliable info, is it?
No, it's potentially an existential threat to the AI industry itself. Foundational models could malfunction, degrade, and potentially even collapse if they don't get a constant infusion of new, high-quality human content. They need that reality check.
So what can we actually do to fight this degradation? Are there technical fixes?
Fortunately, yes, there are technical countermeasures emerging. They all center on the principle of data provenance.
Provenance, like knowing where something came from.
Exactly. Reliably distinguishing human-generated from AI-generated content. That's the core idea. Key technologies include things like digital watermarking.
Okay, I've heard of that, like invisible signals.
Right. Embedding subtle, maybe invisible signals, patterns, and text, changes in pixels into AI-generated content to mark it as synthetic. The challenge is making it robust enough that it can't be easily removed, but also imperceptible so it doesn't ruin the content.
Tricky balance. What else?
Then there are content authenticity standards, like C2PA, the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity. It's an open technical standard designed to certify content source and history. It creates a tamper-evident, cryptographically signed metadata file.
Like a digital tag.
Sort of, yeah. Think of it like a digital nutrition label for content. It provides a verifiable chain of custody showing where it originated and if it's been altered.
That sounds promising.
And finally, there's the concept of AI heuristics for source quality. This means designing AI itself to actively prefer and give more weight to trustworthy sources, moving beyond just matching keywords to more sophisticated assessments of credibility, maybe like Google's EAT framework: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness.
So the AI learns to value good sources.
Potentially, yes,
Right.
by analyzing citation networks, author credentials, maybe even a source's correction history. Tools like Cite, which tracks academic citations, offer a glimpse of how this could work.
Okay, so these technical solutions are vital then.
They seem to be crucial prerequisites for building a sustainable information ecosystem and hopefully breaking that destructive Ouroboros loop. When we look at the risks, factual decay, bias, loss of nuance, there are clearly high probability, high impact issues. And the mitigation strategies consistently point towards a mix of these technical countermeasures alongside policy solutions like audits, licensing, and giving users more control.
Okay, let's move on then. As AI increasingly becomes the primary lens through which we experience the world, its governance becomes this huge socio-political issue. For instance, AI-driven personalization, the stuff that's optimized for keeping us clicking and scrolling.
Yeah, for user engagement.
It seems to powerfully drive political polarization.
There's strong evidence for that. Algorithms learn what keeps you hooked, and often that's content aligning with your pre-existing beliefs. This creates those infamous filter bubbles or echo chambers. They shield you from opposing viewpoints and can actually push you further towards ideological extremes.
And the sources identify specific ways this happens.
Yes, economic and political science models point to two main channels. One is social media, where low general trust in online info makes creating filter bubbles profit maximizing for platforms. It reduces the chance you'll flag opposing views as misinformation, which hurts engagement.
So they keep you in your bubble to keep you happy and clicking.
Basically, which leads to more polarized electorates. The other channel is digital ads. Political campaigns use AI-powered micro-targeting, which can be very effective, especially on less informed users, pushing them towards polarized beliefs.
And this creates a dangerous feedback loop, right, between the tech, public opinion, political strategy, made even worse by AI-generated disinformation, deepfakes.
Absolutely. But here's a fascinating contradiction some research points out. Apparently, some studies suggest AI-generated news might actually reduce hostile media perceptions among strong partisans.
How? That seems counterintuitive.
The thinking is that AI might be perceived as lacking human partisan motives. So paradoxically, a biased summary from an AI might be accepted more readily than the same biased summary from a human journalist perceived as being on the other side.
Wow, that's complex. The psychology of it is really tricky.
It really is. And this leads us to a critical question about media pluralism. How do we safeguard that, a wide range of information sources, diverse viewpoints, when the power of gatekeeping is increasingly centralized?
Right, centralized in a few big tech companies developing these foundational AI models, even while they promise infinite personalization.
It's a paradox. The danger is that AI models, by their nature, tend to optimize for single, coherent, confident sounding answers. And that's fundamentally antithetical to the messy, multivocal nature of healthy democratic discourse. It risks flattening public debate, marginalizing non-mainstream perspectives.
So what kinds of policies are being proposed to safeguard this pluralism? What can actually be done?
Well, ideas include things like mandating much greater algorithmic transparency so we can actually see how curation and ranking work, not just vague promises. Establishing independent oversight bodies to audit these systems specifically for their impact on diversity, and crucially, promoting user control and agency, giving us interfaces that allow us to deliberately opt into viewpoint diversity or maybe even serendipitous discovery, finding things we weren't looking for.
Giving us back some control. But this also brings us to a new, more subtle form of censorship, doesn't it? The
Yep.
shift from, like, an editorial board making a decision to opaque model weights.
Exactly. Traditionally, human gatekeepers, editors, publishers operated within publicly understood, often ethical frameworks. You could argue with them, question their
They
decisions.
were accountable, at least in theory.
Right. Now, gatekeeping shifts to these opaque model weights to automated content moderation systems. Accountability becomes incredibly diffuse, almost impossible to pin down. This algorithmic censorship can be explicit content removal for violating terms of service.
Yes.
But more often, it's implicit. Things like downranking content so fewer people see it, shadow banning accounts, or simply not recommending certain topics or viewpoints. Users often have no idea why their content is suppressed, and there's very little recourse.
And we've seen real-world examples of this causing problems.
Absolutely. The sources highlight striking case studies. Widespread suppression of content related to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, specifically things like forced evictions documented on the ground, or graphic but definitely newsworthy images of refugee protests that involved self-immolation. These were pushed to the fringes by automated systems that couldn't grasp the context or newsworthiness.
That's chilling.
It is, and this environment has even given rise to algospeak.
Algospeak, what's that?
It's coded language users developed to evade these automated filters, using terms like unalive instead of kill or segs instead of sex. You see it all over platforms like TikTok.
Right. People trying to talk around the censors.
Exactly. And while it seems like a clever form of resistance, it also represents a kind of preemptive self-censorship. It subtly changes the very texture of public discourse. It sanitizes and defangs conversations about sensitive or difficult topics. The censorship becomes internalized, changing how we even talk about
Oh,
things.
okay, wow. That lays out a lot of the challenges.
Mm.
All of this brings us then to part 5. Is there a blueprint? Can we build a resilient and pluralistic information economy? It seems clear that just tweaking things won't work. Avoiding this trajectory, opaque algorithms, parasitic economics, information decay, it needs something more fundamental.
It really does. It requires a kind of fundamental reconstruction, not just incremental adjustments. The sources we looked at converge around 4 interconnected principles for building something better.
Okay, let's hear them. Principle 1.
Principle 1 is verifiable provenance. The goal here is simple. Reliably verify content's origin and integrity. This is key to combating misinformation at scale.
How do you do that reliably?
Technically, the proposal involves using something like distributed ledger technology, DLT. You probably know it as blockchain.
Okay, blockchain, like Bitcoin.
Same underlying tech, but used differently. Think of it as a super secure, unchangeable, shared public record book. On this ledger, publishers would get a unique digital ID, like a verified passport for content creators called a decentralized identifier, or DID.
Got it. A verified publisher ID.
Right. When content is created, its unique digital fingerprint, a cryptographic hash, is timestamped on this ledger, linking it directly and permanently to the publisher's DD. This creates an immutable, publicly auditable record of who created what and when.
And who controls this ledger? That seems important.
Crucially, the governance wouldn't be owned by one single company. It would ideally be managed by a multi-stakeholder consortium, maybe something like the Linux Foundation's Decentralized Trust Initiative, broad-based governance.
Okay, so how does this help with AI?
AI models, before they train on data or summarize an article for you, could automatically check the source's DID and the content's hash against this public ledger. This creates a really robust defense against fraudulent or manipulated content masquerading as legitimate news.
Okay, verifiable origin. That's principle one. What's two?
Principle 2 is auditable transparency. This is about moving beyond vague corporate promises of transparency to concrete enforceable oversight.
We need more than just saying we're transparent.
Exactly. This means a comprehensive, probably mandatory audit process targeting 3 key stages of the AI lifecycle. First, a data audit, scrutinizing the data sets used to train AI for representativeness, bias, copyright compliance, things like that.
Looking at what goes in.
Right. Second, a model audit, evaluating the AI model's actual performance, its fairness, accuracy, robustness, testing it rigorously for discriminatory outcomes. And third, a deployment audit, assessing its real-world impact after it's released. How does it affect information diversity, user well-being? Does it lead to manipulative outcomes?
And who does these audits? Can't be the companies themselves, surely.
Absolutely not. They must be truly independent, conducted by accredited third-party interdisciplinary teams. You need computer scientists working alongside social scientists, ethicists, legal experts, and the results have to be published publicly for real accountability.
Okay, provenance and audits. Principle three?
Principle 3 is user-controlled epistemology. That sounds fancy.
A little bit, yeah. What does it mean?
It basically means flipping the script on current AI interface design. Instead of the platform deciding everything you see, we need to restore user agency and actively promote critical engagement.
How would that work in practice?
We envision AI news applications incorporating a user-facing control panel. Think of it like having epistemic sliders or toggles.
Dials I can adjust.
Exactly, dials, for how you want to know what you're seeing. This is inspired by frameworks that really prioritize user choice, information diversity, and user agency. So you could have sliders to adjust parameters like source diversity, maybe ranging from mainstream to independent media sources.
Okay, I could choose to see more indie stuff.
Or viewpoint balance, maybe sliding from consensus views towards more dissenting or alternative perspectives on a topic. Or even evidence standard. Do you want to prioritize peer-reviewed data, or are you open to more anecdotal evidence for this query?
Interesting. Maybe even a serendipity slider to break out of the filter bubble.
Precisely. Serendipity versus relevance, letting you choose between highly personalized content and discovering novel topics you weren't explicitly looking for. Crucially, though, this requires explainable AI, or XAI. The system has to be able to articulate why it's showing you certain content based on your settings. That makes the curation transparent and accountable.
So I can see how my choices affect the results. Okay, that's 3 principles. What's the final one?
And finally, principle 4 brings us back to the money. Fair compensation. We need a system that ensures fair and transparent compensation for the creators of high-quality content.
How do we build that?
Yeah.
Especially if micropayments failed.
This proposal integrates with the other principles. It envisions a decentralized, real-time licensing system built on that same DLT blockchain infrastructure.
Okay, connect the dots for me.
So, publishers register their DIDs, those verified digital passports, and their digital wallet addresses on that decentralized trust ledger from Principle 1. Then, each article's unique cryptographic hash, its fingerprint, is also registered on the ledger. But this time, it's linked to a smart contract.
A smart contract, like self-executing code.
Exactly. It's an automatic, self-executing agreement that specifies the licensing terms. For example, it might say, pay X micropayment per 1,000 words used, or Y fee per query that retrieves this article. When an AI system's RAG retrieves content for your query, it first checks that hash against the ledger for provenance, Principle 1. If the content is licensed for use, the smart contract automatically triggers a direct micropayment from the AI company's wallet to the publisher's wallet. Potentially, yes. Or near real time. And the transaction itself is recorded transparently on the ledger. The final AI summary you get would include those cryptographically signed attribution links, Principle 1 again. And maybe, with the user control interface, Principle 3, you could even see how much each source was paid for contributing to the answer you just received.
Wow, there would be radical transparency,
Yeah.
making the value exchange visible.
Exactly. Your settings could even influence which sources the AI queries and therefore compensates. This whole integrated system aims to create that powerful, virtuous cycle we talked about. Journalists get paid fairly, AI gets verified high quality data, misinformation is actively fought, and users regain meaningful control over their information stream.
So this blueprint, these four principles, provenance, audits, user control, fair compensation, they directly address the big problems we identified.
That's the argument. They tackle the erosion of source integrity, the opacity and lack of accountability in AI, the passive consumption and filter bubbles, and the unfair compensation structures plaguing publishers. The overarching challenge, of course, is huge. It's coordinating this kind of systemic shift, moving away from the current platform-dominated model towards a genuinely decentralized, equitable ecosystem. It requires buy-in from everyone.
So we've covered a remarkable amount of ground today. Um, from the really subtle ways AI is reshaping our very thought processes, our cognition, to these very concrete, ambitious steps we could potentially take to build a more robust information future. It's undeniably clear, isn't it? AI is not just another technological advancement. It's a profound societal transformation that absolutely demands our active engagement.
Indeed. And what's fascinating, I think, is that the solutions we've discussed aren't just technical fixes. You can't just code your way out of this. They require a fundamental rethinking of economic models, new approaches to governance, regulation, and even a conscious shift in our own habits as information consumers.
Hmm.
How do we interact with this technology?
Which leads us, I think, to a really crucial question to ponder as we wrap up. In a world where AI can synthesize information, seemingly instantly, in seconds, how do we ensure that the human act of critical inquiry, the effort involved in deep understanding, and the irreplaceable human value of original journalism, how do we make sure those remain at the very heart of our shared understanding of the world?
It's a powerful thought to leave everyone with. How do we, as individual learners, as citizens, how do we contribute to demanding and actually building this more transparent, equitable, and ultimately more human-centric information future?
Yeah.
Your choices, even the small ones you make every day in how you find and consume information, they truly matter in this evolving landscape.